Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this meditation session from the Freer and Sackler Galleries. My name is Grace Murray. I'm so happy you've joined us. For those of you who are regulars, welcome back. For those of you who might be new, welcome. Today's is one of our Friday art-based meditation sessions. It will be led by Aparna Sadananda. And we have a special guest with us today, Keith Wilson, who is curator of ancient Chinese art at the Freer Sackler. He'll be speaking to us after Aparna introduces today's focus artwork through our meditative practice. So I hope you enjoy, and I will turn it over to Aparna to begin.
Thank you, Grace, for starting our session this Friday morning. I would like to start by sharing the inspiration behind our choice of artwork today. As many of you are aware of, tomorrow, many countries, people in so many countries across the world will be observing Halloween. It's a time where we commemorate the people who have passed on. And inspired by this Halloween theme, we wish to present to you an artwork that in Mahayana Buddhism represents the paradise or the Pure Land. It's often said that art can transport us across space and time, take us to different cultures, experience what was important to people in other parts of the world at that time. And today's artwork takes us on a journey to Korea. And let me share the artwork so we can all take a first look at the beautiful painting that we on today. Dear yogis, I'd like to with Amitabha and the 8 Bodhisattvas. Let's take a look, a first glance. We've just entered where it might be displayed in the museum. A glimpse of it. It is about 5 feet tall and less than 3 feet wide. Painted with ink, colored silk. And it's a hanging scroll. Our curator shared that this is a painting that would be someone when they're dying, as it represents the Pure Land or the paradise. Buddha, Amita, and the 8 Bodhisattvas. And if you'd like to know more details about this painting, besides the spotlight talk that is to follow, you can also check out the link in the chat that Yining has just shared, and you will be able to find more details. Now, if you wish to continue looking at this artwork, you are welcome to open that screen for yourself and continue gazing at it if that's more meditative for you. If you'd like to come along with my guidance, I invite you to maybe close your eyes or gaze down as we take a few moments to center our attention. Let's take this first minute of our practice to just arrive, centering our attention to where the body is placed in space. Like a mental reminder that we're here now, the meditative space that we're connecting to each other from. That is where the body is physically present. We may bring awareness to the sensations at the points of contact, where the body is supported. You notice sensations where the body makes contact with the air and space elements of your surroundings. You may also honor that intention of being here now by drawing deep breaths in. Slow, deep inhale through the nose. Slow, deep exhale through the nose or the mouth. With each inhale, energize us. At each exhale, take away what needs to be released. Let us bring awareness to the center, to the midline of the body. So imagine a line passing through the center of the body, dividing it symmetrically into two equal halves, the right and the left halves. And in today's body scan, we will be observing the sensations in each part, but also then observing the sensations on the part on the both sides from this center. So let's start by noticing the sensations in the right hand. If we couldn't see or move the right hand, what is it that tells us the right hand is there? What are the sensations along the fingers, palms, back of the hands, and the wrists? Notice all the sensations in the right hand. And now we'll gently shift our attention to the left hand, noticing the sensations in the left hand. Now, we'll bring our attention as if we're placed at the center, that imaginary midline. And from there, we're observing sensations in both hands all at once. And when that is complete, we will be repeating this way of scanning through the body from a place of being centered for each pair of parts of the body. Now let's bring our attention to the right arm, the left arm, both arms together. The right shoulder, the left shoulder, both shoulders together. The shoulders and the arms together. The right side of the chest, the right side of the waist, the right shoulder blade, the right lower back, the entire right half of the torso, Now the entire left half of the torso. The entire torso all at once. The right hip and the seat. The left hip and the seat. Both hips and the seat together. The right leg. The left leg. Both legs together. The right foot. The left foot. Both feet together. The right half of the neck. Left half of the neck. Entire neck. The right half of the face and head. The left half of the face and head. Entire head and face at once. Entire right half of the body, crown to feet. Left half of the entire body, crown to feet. The entire body all at once. This is attuned to all the sensations, all the parts of the body from this place of centering all at once. Just take a few breaths in the space of being centered. The inhale is expanding the body, center to sides. Exhale, softening the body, sides to center. And when we feel that we're energetically inhabiting the body, like we're a lot more present than at the beginning. Now maybe open our eyes so we could gaze at the artwork. Now taking a more mindful first glance at this hanging scroll. The positioning of the Buddha, Bodhisattvas. At this first glance, how do you know who's the Buddha and who are the Bodhisattvas? Now we'll zoom a little bit closer. And we might notice how all of the like they are inviting to be a part of the scene, to pure land or the paradise. Behind each Bodhisattvas and the Buddha, Notice the nimbuses around each of the Bodhisattvas and the Buddha. Like their aura is shining through the painting. And now let's step further closer as we zoom in to notice the intricate details of this beautiful work of art. Let us start with the Buddha right here at the center. And notice the details of his robes, the rich color, the intricate detailing. Maybe zooming in further so we can see the motifs and the finer details. What do the folds and the pleats tell you about the smoothness of the fabric? Let's spend a few more breaths appreciating the beauty of Buddha's robes. And then we'll go on to observe the robes and the details on the robes of the Bodhisattvas. First, starting with the Bodhisattvas on the left. And sometimes as we pay attention to the details, we find ourselves getting lost and wondering where we are in the painting. That's happening. Just take a deep breath. Look at the top right corner of the screen. You will get a sense of where we are in the painting. Take your time to notice detail work on each of the Bodhisattvas' robes. Now we'll slowly scroll to the right side. And maybe you are struck by the symmetry, almost mirror image symmetry on either sides of this painting. Symmetry in terms of the clothes, symmetry in terms of the jewelry. Maybe it inspires us to look at whether the Buddha is wearing any jewelry. Now we'll take another round of closely looking at the details of the painting, but paying attention to the facial expressions and the hand gestures. What do we notice? What do we notice in the facial expression of the Buddha and the hand gestures? What do we notice in the expression and hand gesture of the Bodhisattvas? And even at this level of viewing, you might be struck by the symmetry, even in the hand gestures, the mudras that the Bodhisattvas are holding. Might see the same symmetry represented in the objects in their hands as well. But then there's one Bodhisattva who is a little different from the other 7 Bodhisattvas. Take a moment to look carefully and see if you can spot which Bodhisattva that is. And what are the details that make him a little different? Notice how this concept of symmetry is so deeply ingrained in every detail, and how the Buddha is placed on a lotus pedestal right in the center, in the midline. Now, zooming out, let us look at this artwork again to see if it speaks to us differently, if we're having a different response to it this time, and what it is. How does it feel to be familiar with this painting and then look at it? And then maybe we could close our eyes. And sometimes in paying attention, we may have moved our head forward. So just aligning the head and neck with the spine, relaxing the shoulders. Be here in silence, just for a few breaths. Maybe our practice of body scan by centering our attention to that midline and observing the whole body from that naturally helps us create a connection with the symmetry of this painting. The painting reminds us of the wisdom that lies in the center of our being, where we can see dualities as the two different sides of the same unity. And now take a moment to notice the sensations in the right and the left halves. Perhaps witnessing it from a center, like you're saying, this too belongs. No matter what it is, this too belongs. And honoring this intention, we'll practice the alternate nostril breath. We'll make the peace sign with our dominant hand. And then place the peace fingertips to the space between the eyebrows. Then covering the right side of the nose with a thumb, inhale through the left side. Close and exhale through the right. Inhale through the right. Close and exhale through the left. We'll repeat this process, a specific way of breathing, a few times. When we are familiar with this alternate nostril breathing technique, you could choose to pause very briefly after each inhale, focusing on this third eye space, the space of unity, the space where we can witness dualities as aspects of the same unity. The breath is life, and life is energy. Feel free to visualize this energy of life in the form of light being poured into the body, all the goodness of the universe showered into the body with the breath, awakening the wisdom, awakening the sense of unity underlying polarities. The whole body be illuminated by this light from within. This light create an aura all around us. And may we all experience ourselves as an embodiment of this light. May we all awaken the Buddha within us. Just as we share the final breaths during this meditation, we could visualize each one of us as an embodiment of light. And that light from each one of us merging into the source that is the infinite light. That is the Amitabha. We've experienced a connection to the source, to the infinite light. When we've realized that we're not just a drop in the ocean, but the entire ocean in a drop. We close this meditation by joining palms in prayer, offering each other a silent namaste. Also offering the artists who created this painting a silent namaste. May we honor all the teachers, ancient sages, and seers who've carried the tradition of yoga through space and time, offering them a silent namaste. And finally, coming back to the self, let's close by offering the self a namaste. The light in me honors the light in you. Thank you so much for sharing your time, presence, energy, and practice with me. Namaste. If you have any questions for me on the yoga and meditation part of this offering, please feel free to post that to the chat. Thank you so much for coming along with me despite the technical issues we had. I hope you were able to hear my voice as clearly as possible and you could have your own meditation today. Now, to answer and satiate all the curiosity that the mindful gazing may have aroused in us, let's move on to Keith. So let me spotlight Keith's screen here. Over to you, Keith.
Thank you very much, Aparna. I really enjoyed this session. It's the first time I've joined meditation and mindfulness, and I have to say it was really enjoyable. Thank you so much. What I'd like to do is spend a couple of minutes sharing some more information about this beautiful work of art. And I'll send you a link in the chat at the end of my remarks because we have actually created a catalog that includes much more information about our Koryo Buddhist paintings, and this is one of the examples. This particular work, as Aparna mentioned, features Amitabha, the Buddha of the Western Paradise, who's seated at the center of the painting and shown in a kind of teaching gesture with his hands raised. And then gathered below him in this kind of balanced, symmetrical presentation, as Aparna mentioned, are 8 Bodhisattvas. The painting was created in the 14th century during the late Koryo period, a period when the Korean royal court were the primary sponsors of Buddhism, the Buddhist institution. And they may well have been sponsors for the creation of this particular painting. The subject matter is unique to Korean Buddhism. Showing Amitabha with 8 bodhisattvas is an iconography or a method of religious painting subject matter that only appears in Korean art in the 14th, 15th, and 16th century. So it's a very special kind of subject matter in Korea. This kind of painting, it's mounted as a scroll, so it's portable, doesn't reflect the primary method of decorating Korean Buddhist temples. Those paintings would have been painted directly on the wall. So this kind of image was created to be portable. And in fact, its primary function was to guide souls to paradise. So typically an image like this may only have been displayed at the deathbed of a true believer. Amitabha is shown as welcoming believers into his paradise. What's unique about this painting too, this Korean method of depicting paradise, is there are no extraneous details. You don't see any information about the setting. You don't see buildings. You don't see landscapes. You only see the perfection of the deities themselves. So it offers this very, very pure vision of the afterlife in paradise, in the Pure Land of the Buddha Amitabha. The materials are extraordinary. It's painted in silk with these really super saturated mineral pigments. As we scan the surface, you see red is the dominant color for the Buddha image in his garments, but the skin is painted in gold. And then you start seeing other elements of his costume are picked out in different colors, so blues and greens. In fact, red, blue, and green are the dominant colors in the painting. In some places, however, you can see white is used, and typically white is being used to reflect a kind of gauzy fabric that's almost transparent. So, for example, on the sleeve of this Bodhisattva, the white is depicting a kind of gauzy scarf that the Bodhisattva has wrapped around him. You're looking through the scarf to see the colors of the other garments beneath the scarf. So there's a kind of play with transparency and translucency. It's especially clear here in the left hand of the Bodhisattva Kshtagarbha, who holds a crystal wish-granting jewel. And that crystal is transparent, so you're seeing his fingers through the crystal wish-granting jewel. The artists had such a command of their material and their style that they were able to illustrate these kind of illusionistic details in their works. This kind of artistic practice is restricted to Korea during the Koryo period, and this is just a great example of that. These paintings are extremely rare. There are only about 150 that have survived worldwide. We have 3. There are 13 others that are in American museum collections. And the catalog that I mentioned earlier features all 16 of these 13th and 14th century Korean Buddhist paintings in American collections. What's nice about the catalog is not only is there more information, but we've included lots and lots of details that allow you to really examine the painting in phenomenal detail. You can zoom in so close that you can really almost see the weave of the fabric, repairs that have been made to the painting surface over time, underdrawings and overdrawings that indicate how the painting itself was made. It probably began as an outlined image with then the super rich mineral pigments added. A characteristic of these paintings too is the importance of gold, with the patterns all being depicted in the surface in this rich gold pigment. Let's zoom into the surface here. And it's the depiction of these patterns in gold, and especially their interactions with simulated folds of the fabric on the surface that give the figures their kind of three-dimensionality. When Aparna was talking about getting lost in the surface of the painting, I have to admit that with these close-up details, I find that I easily get lost in the surface of this painting. And I think that was very much what the painters had in mind, that these were kind of meditative vehicles that would allow a dying soul to kind of imagine a paradise, a life in paradise, and the patterns kind of enable that imagination. Maybe I'll stop here and see if you have any questions that I might be able to answer.
Thank you so much, Keith. That was amazing, especially to look at those detailed images. Claudia asks, do you know what tools were used to paint on the silk?
They're using natural animal hair brushes, and the pigments, as I mentioned, are saturated mineral pigments, chiefly copper-based pigments for the green and blue. Oh, here's another instance where you can see the way that the artist is kind of playing with transparency, this beautiful headscarf that the Bodhisattva Mahastamaprapta is wearing. So yeah, they were using animal hair brushes and mineral pigments, ground gold. Unlike the use of gold in China and Japan, where it's typically applied as cut gold leaf, here it's gold powder that's mixed with a lacquer binder. So it's using gold almost as a pigment on the surface. The paintings are painted on silk that was probably specially created for these Buddhist images, since many of them are quite large, wider than a normal silk loom for making fabric for garments. So probably the silk was coming from special workshops. And the images, too, were workshop productions. They weren't done by a single master, but a number of artists would have been involved in their creation. So painted on silk and then backed with backing papers that give the support to the surface and help to protect the paintings. But they're still incredibly fragile, which is probably one reason why there are only about 150 that have survived to our day.
We have two other questions if you'd like to address either of these. Amanda asks, are all the characters in the painting male? And Mary asks, could you say something more about the hand gestures and what they mean?
Sure. At this point, all of the Buddhist deities are depicted as male. Let's look at the Buddha's face a little bit. They're all depicted as male. As many of you may know, over time, in the post-Koryo period, so 16th, 17th, 18th century, there's a kind of feminization of some Buddhist deities, particularly Avalokiteshvara, who in some East Asian traditions is almost invariably shown with a more feminine characteristic, especially in more recent centuries. But in this time, in the 14th century, when this painting was created, the deities are depicted as male. And sorry, Grace, what was the second question? The hand gestures.
Yeah.
Mudras, or the kind of communicative positioning of the fingers, help us identify deities in some cases, and the objects that they hold also help to identify the bodhisattvas. What's interesting here is, as Aparna mentioned, the mudras, or the hand gestures or hand positions, are essentially identical and just arranged in symmetrical pairs. So we really need to rely more on what the bodhisattvas are holding, and also other attributes to identify them specifically. So the image is kind of coded in this way. It's the mudras and the attributes that help us identify the specific identities of the subjects. And if we look at those things, for example, let's look at the two deities here at the front, the two forwardmost bodhisattvas. You can see that the bodhisattva on the left, or the proper right for Amitabha, has a water bottle at the center of his crown, and the mate to that bodhisattva has an image of a seated Buddha, Amitabha, in fact, in his crown. So it's those details that allow us to identify these two bodhisattvas as Mahastamaprapta here on the left, and Avalokiteshvara here on the right. These are the two primary bodhisattvas that are more commonly shown in Amitabha triads. So the typical method of illustrating Amitabha in the Western paradise is to show the primary Buddha, Amitabha, with simply Mahastamaprapta and Avalokiteshvara. Here, these other 6 bodhisattvas are added in part to, I think, further empower the image and really enrich the surface. The deity that we looked at before, who has this wish-granting jewel in his hand, identifies him as Kshtagarbha, the bodhisattva that ransoms souls that are reborn in hell, Buddhist hells. So the identification of the different bodhisattvas help us understand their role, not just in this painting, but in the Buddhist tradition at large.
We had one question that you mentioned that this was a collaborative work that many different artists would have worked on. Were there any individual artists from this time whose names we know?
No, this is an anonymous workshop tradition. And in fact, what's really interesting is there's a very finite number, a very small number of subject matters and iconographies in Buddhism at this time. And the compositions tend to repeat almost identically. So we think that not only were they workshop tradition products, but there may well have been model compositions that were copied over and over again. And so that kind of instills the idea that it's not appropriate to think of these as individual masterworks produced by a great artist, but instead they are vehicles for religious practice. And so the anonymity and the fact that the compositions are repeated and reflect a kind of basic ideal model, I think reinforces their identity as religious images as opposed to expressive or creative or individual, individual creations, as we're more accustomed to thinking of paintings in the modern Western context.
Thank you both to Keith and Aparna for your time. And we'll definitely invite Keith back to share another artwork with us in another session soon.